Start the recording and welcome everybody to our session today as part of our creative practices series on writing our manifestos with Beth Grossman. And we're really pleased you could all be here today. I met Beth online in one of the many Zoom events that were going on a few years ago, and she lives near me, and so we started walking and became friends, and I really was always very interested in how she chose her projects and the clarity with which she made decisions. And I was like, why is that? And she said, because I have a manifesto. And what is that? So we've been talking about this, she and I, for a while now. And what I love about Beth's manifesto is that it's this living document. And I don't even know if it exists in written form, but it's very clear in her own mind. And so we're going to hear about how she developed her manifesto, what it means to her, what manifestos are, how we can develop our own, what they're useful for, how can we all get a little more clear on what we really deeply want to say yes to, and then say no to everything else. I think it's a good discipline and an interesting practice for clarifying our own values. And so I'm going to, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you to all of my friends who joined the Deep Transformation Network in order to come to this. I really appreciate that. It's so nice to have you here with me. And I'm really delighted to be able to share this manifesto idea with you. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what I care about and what I notice and what I experience and how I can invite others into dialogue and possibly action. I happen to do that as an artist and an activist. In my artistic practice, I'm committed to taking responsibility to think about the impact of my footsteps and the power of my voice. I've been teaching and hosting manifesto workshops to invite everyone to know the power of their voice and how to infuse their daily work of all kinds with their values. Today, after this introduction, we'll start the process of designing our own personal manifesto. A personal manifesto is about what you stand for. It's a mission statement, a declaration of core values, and sometimes a call to action. A manifesto helps you get clear about what you care about, where you belong, and how you carry out your actions. It's a living document that evolves over time. My interpretation of a personal manifesto for the purposes of this workshop is that it's not about beliefs, religion, or politics. It's also not an artist statement. It's not necessarily even about art, though many art movements have manifestos. My manifesto is a kind of moral compass, a roadmap to guide me day by day, to help me make ethical decisions about what kinds of projects to take on, and then strategize how I implement them according to my principles. For me, my manifesto is not a set of rules that I would probably break anyways. It's a fluid and flexible, though my foundation of core values remains solid. There's room for the priorities of the values to change with time, situation, and goals. My manifestos evolved from my studies of historical and contemporary artistic practices and activist movements. But more importantly, just doing many projects over time, making relationships, leading, and showing up as an artist, and then evaluating my past artistic experiments provide insights to develop the content of my manifesto. The situation we face today in our world requires all hands on deck working together with long-term, clear intentions guided by our values. So in order to do that, I'd like to call attention briefly to the difference between values and beliefs. Somehow in our society, these two concepts have been conflated. Values remain somewhat constant, and beliefs are conditional and can change. So for example, to make a simple point, let's look at how we use the two words in the English language. I believe it might rain. Might is conditional, and maybe it will rain. And I value the rain and how it benefits the land. This value never changes. On another scale, if we look beyond our religious upbringing, our political party affiliations, and our personal preferences, what would be left? Our values. Values can be somewhat culturally specific and are uniquely personal, though we might be able to find common ground in our mutual values, or at least accept them in one another. Finally, a manifesto can take any form, such as writing, poetry, scripts, songs, drawings, mapping, performance, ritual, you name it. And for me, it starts with identifying what you deeply care about. So I'd like to have everyone, if you are willing, turn on your videos, and we're going to just kind of find out who's here and find out one thing that you value. And we'll start to get kind of the juices going, and people to start to go like, oh yeah, me too. Or, oh, never thought of that one. Or, yeah, not so important to me. Like, so we're just going to kind of throw something out there, and also just get to see who's all here. And one of my biggest values in my manifesto is making relationships and connecting people, and feeling that connection amongst us. So this is just one way, even though we're to try to break that Zoom wall. So don't be shy. And Christina's going to call on people. So raise your hand.
It might be easiest if people just kind of do the raise hand option, and then we can it'd be easy to call on people. And as many people as possible to just share a couple of words, less than a sentence, about what is something that you deeply care about, one of your values. Or I'll start calling on people.
Yeah.
Sarah Fitzgerald is raising her hand. She's muted there.
I feel very strongly about the health of the planet and the soil that I'm standing on. It's something I've worked most of my life, most of the last 20 years on.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michelle Merrill.
Sure. I'm really valuing the more than human world, and in particular, healthy rainforests.
Thank you. Catherine Hook.
Hello, that's Catherine Hauk.
Hauk, welcome.
Connection and creativity in the service of deep earth relationships.
Thank you so much. Marianne?
I care about so much. But yes, I want to echo what was already said. I just really value this beautiful earth, this beautiful planet. And I value gatherings like this. I really value this connecting. And it just, thank you just so much, but it's rich to be here.
Wonderful, thanks. Suvan Gear?
I value, excuse me, I value joy. Finding it, creating it, and experiencing it.
Wonderful. Teresa Stern.
I value the natural environment and the ecosystem services it provides to all of us.
Thank you. Peggy Rose?
I value life and humility.
Wonderful. Kim?
I value diversity as it's modeled in our ecology, but in all ways.
Thank you. Sean Rosenmoss?
Right. Yeah, I value social justice and making sure everyone has access, whether it's clean air, clean water, access to the arts, access to technology, education. I mean, just worked on those things for the last 50 years. So yeah, but the big umbrella is about social justice and making sure everyone has access.
Wonderful. Okay. Paige.
Hello, I'm Paige. I value, normally I say I value inclusive communities that are built on of, by, for all. But right now I'm feeling like the seed of that is a sense of empowerment that comes from like self-love, community love, and loving each other. So ultimately cultivating empowerment through loving.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. I'm a little lost on where we are with the Nia.
Yes, I value diversity without uniformity.
Thank you. Nay.
I value integrity and leaning in and listening to what is needed right now.
Thank you. Helen.
Hi, so many amazing statements, and I'm looking at my own and thinking, oh God, I value, hopefully, that in my, I don't know if I can put this right, like leaving the world in a better place than when I found it. So leaving people happier, healthier, the environment happier and healthier, and systems happier and healthier. And that's what I'd like to do with my life.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Jennifer Ewing.
Hi, everybody. I want to say I value my spiritual self. And because I do, this feeds all of my other values. Without that core, I feel like it's an abstract idea. So I make it really heavily into myself, and I go there often, and I find my spiritual self and I work with that. And that helps me do everything else I need to do.
Lovely. Deborah Crooks. What happened to Deborah?
I'm right here. I was going to say the natural environment and freedom of speech and choice.
Fantastic. Thank you. Lynn Ditchfield.
I value absolutely everything that's been said, but I'm going to just add cross-cultural exchanges and with family and friends.
Okay. Stores.
I value the braiding of community and relationships and how they pull people in and together.
Wonderful. I saw, let's see, Annie Shuten had her hand up.
I value truth, connection, and humor.
Wonderful. Let's see, Terry Cohn.
Hello. I value everything that everybody said, but I want to add, I really value the health of the planet, including the health and well-being of the animals.
Fantastic. Belinda.
Hi. I value most of all of what everybody said, but I do value the natural world and life and the interconnectedness and trying to understand our place in the world and being adaptable to change and yeah. So
Wonderful. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak into the space? Okay, Christopher.
I'll add flexibility, movement, and dynamism.
Fantastic values. Okay, well, I think that's an inspiring vessel in which to start writing our own, focusing on our own, values and priorities. Like we all have all of that. And what is the work we are individually called to do most strongly? So I like to think of that, the word calling, like, how is our work a calling? And so let's turn it back over to Beth.
Thank you all. Oh, Teresa wrote, I'm moved by all these statements, and me too. And I think that, in just this short time, we kind of put together a vision for the world that we want to live in. If we were all able to really create our lives based around these kinds of values, it's kind of fun to picture what it might look like. So I'm going to give a little bit more of a talk and a presentation about 2 projects and about how I actually put some of my values to work. So after 35 years of experimenting with different paths in my art making, performance, and activism, I can now look back and see a clear thread of my values throughout my diverse projects, both locally and around the world. Each project represents a personal learning process, and I love to invite others to learn with me. That means sometimes the riskiest projects, the ones that I use, oh, really? Are you really going to do that? Where the elements of failure provide the richest learning and future questions to explore. We're all walking down unknown paths to discover new creative methods to tackle our environmental and social challenges. Entering that unknown and discussing the conundrums, finding creating possibilities, and sharing the process is what I consider makes it art. When I embark on a project, I found that it's helpful to have my clear set of principles that reflect my values and motivate and direct my work, such as, I'll just list a couple of the ones that are on my list that have been kind of my map of methodology: to care passionately, ask the hard questions and point the elephant out in the room, take liberties and challenge authoritative messages, consult history, know my audience, who do I want to have a conversation with, provide welcoming points of entry such as history, beauty, craft, humor, do no harm to the environment, animals, or people, listen deeply and invite participation, always widening the circle, making inclusive and lasting relationships, respect. I do something called HILI, which it stands for high impact, low infrastructure. I always ask myself, how can I get the most amount of impact with the least amount of infrastructure? And I'll go into that a little more when I show my projects. Reuse when possible, work locally first before expanding, have flexibility and know when to let go, mentor whenever possible, risk failure, evaluate and get downright creative, and have fun and keep a sense of humor. So those are just a few of the principles that make up my personal manifesto. It's a living document that changes and grows as I continue working and challenging myself as an artist and an activist. A clear list of my principles provides a foundation for my methodology and a roadmap as I apply these tenets to the developing multifaceted aspects of each project. So, and as you'll see when I'm showing it, it's just, it can get really complicated, but if you have this foundation, you always have something to refer to, because there's always so many moving parts in any project, as all of you know, whatever kind of project you're doing. So I'm going to briefly show you a couple projects including the obstacles and challenges that just make it interesting and usually raise more questions to consider. So bear with me for a sec while I share my screen. Keynote. Play. Can y'all see?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Good. So this is a project called The Law of Seeds. And I had been going around the country scribing the US Constitution on money bags from failed banks with quill pens that I make. and dressed with my American flag and talking to people about what they cherish about the Constitution. And I got invited to do a residency at the Queen's Botanical Garden. And they're like, can you do that project here? And I'm like, people are going to a garden are going to a garden. They don't want to think about, Constitution or politics or any of that. So this project was born. It's called the Law of Seeds, where I wrote, based on the Bill of Rights, I wrote my own Bill of Rights for seeds, or therefore nature. And I had a 12 by 12 studio in the middle of the garden in the summer. And I welcome visitors all day long, if all the sides were open, and talk to them about what rights of nature would look like. And the reason why I also chose, wait, I'll go back to this, writing with a quill pen, is that it's very anachronistic. Like, we're all running around, we're texting, we're emailing, and it's like slowing down to like make your own quill pen and learn how to scribe in the way that the US Constitution was scribed, and all that. It's like, it's a way too that people can come and as a point of entry for them to come and talk to me about, what are you doing? And did you write that? And, is that for sale? And, all kinds of questions, but then it goes into deeper questions when I start to get in a conversation with them. So I also did workshops through the whole thing where, invited people to make collages about what they love about on the earth. And people have a lot of feelings about drawing, usually when I work interactively with people, but everyone can cut, paste, and collage. So this worked out really great. And people made beautiful works, which I hung all over the studio so people could see them. And I mentor when possible is another one of my tenets. So I, just taught this little one how to scribe with a quill pen, and I'm sure that he'll remember it. It was fun. So this is the work, and I'm just going to go through it briefly, and later on I can post a link to, you can look at the work more closely if you're interested. These are vintage seed bags, and on the back are some very interesting, weird, and also sometimes offensive graphics of Native Americans and corn and all of that kind of stuff. But also some of them are even handmade, which has been pretty fun to look at. And this was at the Foster City rec center and City Hall. So then this was where it gets into the challenge authority, interact with local government, do something outrageous that you think will never happen. And I said, I wonder if I could get our mayor to adopt my Bill of Rights for the city of Brisbane as a proclamation. I realized that I couldn't do it as trying to create an ordinance or a law, but I did want to, a proclamation does set the intentions of a city, and also wanted to kind of push the boundary and get them to think a little bit about their power to create a non-GMO area or prohibit kinds of uses of pesticides in our town, or at the very least what they use on city property. So here I am teaching our mayor, Clark Conway, how to sign with a quill pen his name, the proclamation, and he read it out loud into the public record. And then I took it into another city, Foster City, and the city council read it into their public record. So that was really fun and exciting, and got into some nice dialogues with some of the local politicians about rights of nature. I just want to mention just a couple of I also had this sort of larger vision to like take it to other cities and show it in city halls and rec centers of other cities and get them to adopt the proclamation. And one thing that I really learned was a couple things. One is that interacting with local government is not something that a lot of people have experience with or know how to do. So when I would ask people, would you be interested in taking this to your local government? They kind of would like, yeah, but I wouldn't know how to, I don't know them. I don't know how to do it. And when I came to Brisbane, one of my principles was I wanted to be able to walk into City Hall and have everyone know me and be happy to see me. And that way I could, so I started making a name for myself as an arts organizer so they could see me as a contributor and to our town, but also then that also gave me a voice that they would listen to when I wanted to talk to them about the environment or crazy projects like this. So I had trouble getting people to take it further to other cities, and also realize that these politicians are really only concerned with talking to their constituents. So if anyone here wants to bring it to your town and go through that process, I'll help you, coach you how to interact with your local government. So second project I want to share is I was invited to do a residency in Mexico, in Michoacan, Mexico, and on a ranch there. And every day I would take my walks at this nearby Laguna del Fresno, and I started noticing, hard not to notice, that there was just plastic garbage everywhere. And this is a kind of floodplain that you're looking at. So basically in the wet season, it's wet. The lake expands in the background. And this is also where they graze their cattle and horses. So when the plastic breaks down, effectively the horses and cattle are eating these tiny plastic shards. So I was like, okay, I'm an artist, I'm an outsider, I'm helicoptering into this ranch. How do I talk to people about it? What is the cause? Why are they dumping here? Sort of questions like that. How do I get to know people? So in my walking around, I started talking to people about it. And then the little school across the way from our ranch, I went there and asked them if they would be interested in doing a workshop with me. So they came over and we divided into two groups, and on their own, they decided one group did a utopian view of the lake and the other one did a dystopian view of the lake, which became our banners. And I decided to have a lake cleanup party on a Saturday, which in an area where people work on the ranch is like asking a lot because they work so hard all week, and getting the word out was interesting and fun because it gave me a reason to talk to people. I also designed my projects so that I have to get out and meet people and connect and all of that. It was also interesting challenge to do it all in Spanish. And I used my knowledge of working with local government. I said, well, how do I get the word out? So I contacted the local mayor, met with him. And I also, when I started asking people to bring these feed bags to use as receptacles, and then would you be willing to come with your trucks and help bring them to the garbage? They said, no can do. Gasoline is too expensive. That's why we throw it in the lake. Aha, figured out the problem. So I talked to the mayor after I'd made the relationship with him about, would you be willing to come with city sponsored trucks to collect the garbage that we pick up on the floodplain and bring it to the dump? So here was the day. You can see the banners of the kids, and it was really fun. We had a good time. And I asked them to bring these feed bags, or that they normally were just laying around in their barns. They're like that plastic woven stuff that would eventually degrade. So now we have a new use for it. All generations came. About 30 people came, which I thought was pretty amazing on a Saturday morning. And here we had it piled up, ready to go. And then I promised that there'd be prizes. And I said they weren't going to be plastic prizes. And so I bought a whole bunch of small trees, fruit trees that people could take home and plant in their gardens. And the kids got a couple to plant in the schoolyard. And that made me really happy to think that, you know, that would continue to maybe remind them of the project from time to time. So anyways, this project, while I felt like I was all along trying to use all of my principles and tenets to do it, this project had some inherent problems, being a foreigner, being helicoptering in as an artist. And that was, I was really hoping that it would continue and maybe be a seasonal thing, but I was leaving and I'm not that mayor's constituent. And so I didn't have any way to like figure out how to get him and everybody else to continue to do it. So that was one problem. Other problems were that I had to kind of deal with is like in terms of this, looking through my list here, care passionately, but asking hard questions. So like, why is this here? But not sounding judgmental or critical. I did that by asking the question, what do you love about your lake? So this question, like, what do you care about? Getting people to really think about something that they care about. And then, I mean, I can only hope that in our conversation it will come out, and hopefully I don't come on too strong because I'm constantly trying to keep myself in check. But, you know, like if we care about this so much, how is this happening? What can we do about it? You know? So those are just a few of the kinds of things that come up in the projects, and nothing's perfect. And, you know, do no harm on the environment. Well, there's also like, I flew there, you know, and so there's like always these kinds of questions, like when I was saying that the manifesto has to be fluid, in that, you know, sometimes I have to think about some of the values taking higher priorities than others for the overall good of what I want to do. But these kinds of tenets and guidelines really make it clear to me when I'm trying to decide about, first of all, accepting a project and how I want to implement it. Like, so for example, the project might be a really great invitation where I get to go to, you know, fly to Tahiti and work and have everything taken care of and do some kind of environmental project. And it's sponsored by an oil company. I got like, so there's, okay, now I have a little conflict, but is it? Not really. It's simple if I look at my tenets, right? Because it helps me realize that I'd be just doing the work of the oil company that wants to use the power of my voice and the connections and the web that I have created. So it makes, like, I just hate making decisions, you know, so making these in advance is so stressful. So making these decisions in advance of like, what's always a good idea really streamlines that situation and also helps me focus on what's really important to me. So I'm going to stop the share. There we go. Are we back? Good.
Yes.
All right. So now's the time where you're going to get to start. Oh, actually, let me ask if there's any questions along the way first. That would be a good thing, just to check in, because I presented a lot of material.
Anybody want to raise their hands and make a comment? I love that you see this as a hack. You know, like this is the easy button. It's just, let's just get it all figured out, and then you don't have to, you know, work so hard to make decisions. That's delightful. And I noticed a lot of joy in running through both of these things, which also speaks to you, even if it's not written in your manifesto.
Any questions? Okay, well then now's the time. We're going to break in pairs. And this is how this works. We're going to have 10 minutes in a breakout session, and each one of you gets about 5 minutes, and I want you to keep your own time. And you're going to just talk freely about your key values and start to notice how you already put them into practice. So, you know, thinking about the way that I gave the example about my projects, all of you do this already. So it's just kind of a matter of focusing it and bringing it out into the forefront. So, and I thought it would be great if you want to agree with each other to take notes so that you can just talk without having to remember. And then those notes will become a nice sort of beginning for you when you do start to write down or create your manifesto in whatever form you do, you'll have that. So, and then when you finish that, then just note the person's name so that you can direct message them on the Zoom chat. Okay, so by now everyone should probably know how to do that. If you need help when we get back, we'll help you.
Terry, has your hand raised.
Who?
Terry.
Oh, hi, Terry.
You're muted.
Got it. I was actually two things. One, I wanted to ask you to say a little more about, you said, I hate making decisions and I understand the context. Can you say a little more about that? It feels like an important statement, you know, sort of how the manifesto helps in that respect.
Okay.
And then would you
go ahead.
repeat the direction for the breakout room?
Will do. Good plan. Yeah, I'll just say that, just like kind of go back to the place of the stress that decision making causes me. And, you know, things like, I don't have time for lunch. Should I sit down and eat, or should I like just stand here and like do it on my way to something? You know, or I don't have time to call my mom. Should I call my mom? Call your mom. You know, I don't have time to go for a walk. And like all these kinds of things that just kind of get in the way on a daily basis. And it's like, I finally started making this mental list of things that were always a good idea. Like, take the walk, you know, it's, you know, do the things that are important to me first, you know, those kinds of things. So that's kind of where it started. And I was starting to realize that once I had made those decisions, it ahead of time, it just took the pressure off so that I could just do them. You know, it was already already decided. So anyways, that's where it kind of started. And then I realized that those things that I called my list of always a good idea, started to reflect my values. And that they also started to create this methodology that I could apply to all of my projects. Is that a good answer to your question?
Thank you. That's great. I really appreciate it. And what was the direction for the breakout room?
All right. The direction is, and I will put them in the chat in case you forget, but it's what are your key values and how do you put them into practice? And you're going to be in a pair, chance to connect, and then really listen deeply without questioning too much or interrupting or what do you mean by that or whatever. Just let the person talk. And if you agree beforehand, just take notes. And most of all, just have fun getting to know each other and sharing your values with each other. It's kind of an unusual way to get to know somebody. So is that all clear?
How much time?
So we're going to come back here in 10 minutes.
And are you suggesting that we take notes for each other or for ourselves?
For each other, so you don't have to pay attention.
Thanks.
Yeah. And actually, Christina, can you write these? What are your key values and how do you already put them into practice?
Am I writing that in the chat?
Yeah, in
Actually,
the chat.
when we go into the breakout room, those will probably disappear.
Oh, okay. Then
I'll
write
try
them
to
down
write it again.
yourself.
Once we're in breakouts, I'll try to write it again. And yeah, so try to take notes for the other person and then maybe send a few notes directly to that person via the direct messaging. And then after we do this, aren't we going to share a little bit about what we've discussed?
Oh yeah, and then as we're coming back into the room, we're just gonna notate 3 of them in the chat. So then we're going to start to get a picture of all of your conversations with each other and where we overlap and all of that.
Okay. One other, we got stores with a raised hand as well.
Yeah. How much time?
So it'll be 5 minutes each. So we'll call you back. So it'll be coming and going. Let's give them 12 minutes. So, but 5 minutes each and keep your own time in switching off.
Yeah. Now I haven't created breakout rooms a million times. I've got it set up to start. So I'm going to open the rooms now. Is that working? Everybody getting a Okay. Okay, we're going to start to gather again in the main room. If you'd like to type in a few notes about something you learned about yourself or someone else, if you have a couple of thoughts on your values and how they might feed into the manifesto writing that we're going to do in a few minutes, please put a couple of notes in the chat. We're going to all share as we regather. And we're all back. Okay.
Great. I hope that was fruitful. Take a minute right now. And if you typed it, just copy and paste the notes in a direct message to your partner. If it goes to everyone, oh, well, don't worry. but you can find the person's name in the list. Because we're going to use them in a minute. Okay. Great. Right. Next step is Christine and I were talking about how, you get all fired up in a workshop and then you leave meeting and it's over and you're like, well, that was really good. I had some great intentions. So we're actually going to just spend 5 minutes individually, quietly, if everyone will turn off your microphones and just, you can take the notes that the person sent you, copy them onto your computer, and then you can either write by hand or on the computer or draw or whatever form you want it to be. And we'll set a timer for 5 minutes. So just enjoy this, and then we'll come back and have questions and wrap up. So I'm gonna start 5 minutes. Start writing.
Okay, and we'll come back in 5.
Great. Terrific. I hope that was a good opportunity to get some of your thoughts down. If you'd like to, you could write sort of 3 of your particular values or things that were sort of like ahas or stuff you hadn't thought of before in the chat. If you'd like to share, it'll just kind of give a bigger picture and people can start to go like, oh, right, didn't think about that one. All right, now's the point in time to ask me anything you want to ask or ask something of somebody else. And if you can put your screens on, let's make this a kind of conversation. Don't be shy, and just ask anything you've been wondering about or something that you thought about or an aha or something that was unexpected today when you were thinking about manifestos. And just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Belinda.
Okay. I have always thought of manifestos as movements in a way rather than core values, but I can see how they intersect. But I guess it's like a personal manifesto as opposed to a manifesto for like an art movement or a movement, or so if you're doing a manifesto with a group, you might all It might be like a thing where you all decide these are our common core values, and that becomes your manifesto. So the differentiation between the personal and the group manifesto, I think that's important to me, because I think you can start with your own personal, but then extend it to find people with commonality to create a group manifesto.
It's
Does
a
that make
worthy
sense?
endeavor, and sometimes
Yeah.
something that we need to do, particularly when we're working with an organization. And I think in a certain way, it's kind of like a contract. Like I always shy away from contracts because I'm like, oh, it's so legal and formal and all of that. But if I look at it as a way to get on the same page so we know what we're talking about, because people hear things through their own filter of how they want to hear them. And so this way, if I'm clear and I have my own manifesto, which gives me a sense of my expectations, then I can be clearer with others, and also hopefully be able to kick back and really listen rather than trying to formulate mine at the same time as I'm listening, which is where we all start interrupting each other. And then just find out where we might have things in common. So I guess if I was to embark on one of those endeavors, I would ask people to really work separately first and then come together, and we would be surprised, like we did today. Like when we went around in the very beginning and people talked about what they cared about, I didn't disagree with one of you on it, So, but if we would have started talking about our beliefs, we would have been in quite a different kind of conversation. And I also just want to commend this group. You guys got it right away, the difference between beliefs and values. So thank you for that, because everything you talked about they really were values. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for that. I love questions. I love conversations. That's what I'm about. So.
So Beth, you had mentioned that your like manifesto has changed through time and you see it as a living document. Is there like an example of like how that's changed or evolved for you?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, like we're evolving beings, we're learning new things all the time. And so I'll just say, growing up in the Midwest, middle class American, on native lands, for example, fully unaware of that. And then sort of being faced with, well, now everyone's doing land acknowledgements and, this mandate for land back and all of that, has really made me have to think in a different way that has definitely changed my values, because in order to understand that, I have to kind of understand the values of another culture, in this case, various Native American tribes, cultures, and the idea that, well, is land property and how are we all connected to nature and all of those kinds of things. And to be honest, growing up in kind of Judeo-Christian general society, we tended to other everything. And so I think that, had I written this manifesto before I became aware of something like that, I wouldn't have been able to reflect in my own words what it means to be connected to be part of and connected to all nature in the full understanding, in the developing understanding that I have of what that really means. I can't even say it's a full one yet. So that's how it changes and it grows. But if I start to get into beliefs about whether or not I think that's viable, or whether or not people should get their land back, or any of those kinds of things, then that becomes complicated. But the wanting to understand and acknowledging that I'm part of all nature and connected to it all is a value that won't change, but has grown. Is that a good example?
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I
Helen.
can relate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So what I'm wondering is how we keep the faith, and that there's environmentally we're in a sad state in the UK. Our Prime Minister wants to open new oil fields, and he's doubling back on his climate commitments, and it makes you weary and it grinds you down if the people at the top are not listening. And how do we keep the faith? How do we stay passionate about it? How do we kind of I'm exhausted sometimes by it all. I feel that like I'm not making a difference, you know?
Really good question. I think many
Any
of us feel that
suggestions?
way. Many of us feel that way. Yeah, actually, my
Yeah.
partner and I, Terry, were talking about that too, and especially as we're coming into an election cycle in the US, and like all these politicians and everybody's looking for knee-jerk ways to capture people's sense of what they believe in. And so I think there's two things at play. One is that what we both kind of acknowledged to each other when we were talking was that if I know what my values are, they can go on and on about all this stuff that's, you know, getting people doing all these reactions based on knee-jerk beliefs, but I can keep track of what I know to be true, which is that I care about the environment and the connection of all living beings and preserving it and leaving, as you said, leaving the world a better place. And so I think that that's one way that this kind of helps to be able to like tune out the noise is one thing. The second thing, which is part of my manifesto, which may not be for other people here, but I made a decision to figure out how to support and make relationships with my local government. Obviously, I will probably have a long way to go before I get into the level of prime ministers or presidents, but I can really make a big difference in my local government because I'm a constituent. I put them in power with the rest of my community, and they actually do want to hear, you know, but when we come, our sort of quote unquote, democratic way to, you know, have our say is to rally a bunch of people to take down the powers that be. And then that shows us this kind of flip-flop back and forth in the US anyways, between the Democrats and the Republicans. And then one gets into power and undoes what the others just did. And you can see that's kind of going around the world too, from, you know, socialist parties that were empowered now being taken over by right-wing. So I think that some of it is thinking about how can I get involved and make a change? And part of it, I think, is acting locally and finding a way that might trickle up. But also figuring out, in order to do that, to really make a relationship. So you can literally like call your local ombudsman or council person or whoever they are and sit down and have a conversation with them, because it's kind of isolating up at the top. And they're faced with these decisions that they have to make that are between a rock and a hard place most of the time. So they kind of want a chance to be listened to also. And then you learn more, and sometimes you get their ear.
I would just add briefly, like, you know, what connection. So Beth is valuing connection with her local political people. I value connection with other artists, which is part of why I host this group. So the shared value there is connection. Like how we implement it is this, you know, can be different depending on our particular situation. And one thing I might suggest is, as we go back and look at the notes we've made from this session and think about it, refine it, think about the verbs, right? Like, what are the verbs, the processes associated with the things we're writing down? So connect, right? That's the verb. So what are the ways that my values can become actions is by taking those values and making them into verbs. And it just might help us like take the ideas from the abstract into the executable, in a way.
I love that. Thank you. Looks like Lynn has a question.
I just want to chime in to Helen because I've been in that spot many times as an old lady, I could tell you. But I think one of the things, and it really reverberates with what Christina was saying, is that connection to others who are like-minded. You don't have to worry about singing to the chorus. Get that chorus up and make it loud. I mean, it's just to not feel alone and isolated, because you're not. You've got so many people there. I know I could name some for you who will be right out there with you. And especially when you use your talents that you have, and those of us who love the arts, I think that's a wonderful way to express it. And the other thing is to rely on to stand on the shoulders of the people who, the activists, the people, the practitioners, people who have gone through this, who really know. We're not alone in this. That's all.
Thank you, Lynn. Beautiful. Any other questions or thoughts?
Becky Rose has her hand up.
Okay, Rose.
Well, I guess I'm also chiming in. And there were two things that I thought of to add, which were, for one thing, those ones at the top with all the power, they're never going to do it. So they don't make change. We do. So there's that. Stop looking to them to do the right thing, because they're never going to do it on their own. And the other thing is to have your own source of information that you get to through your heart by connecting with all life. And that's how you keep your energy up. And that's the real truth. That's it.
Thank you. And Terry?
I found this talk to be extremely interesting and valuable. The idea between, the relationship between beliefs and values. And I'm thinking about what activates my values. And Beth said something that I'm going to share, which was, what kind of ancestor do I want to be? And I really, really like that. As an older adult, it really matters to me. I have a grandson, and I think about this all the time. What's the world that he gets to inherit? So anyway, it's really, thank you, Beth, for, that, talking about that distinction between values and beliefs. It seems pretty central.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to type that in the chat. Kim?
Oh yeah, what kind of actually, that was a question posed by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer at a talk that I just listened to. She wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, which highly recommend that book.
I think it's actually it goes further back than that. That's
okay.
Jonas Salk, maybe. I can't remember, but anyway.
Okay, thank you. That's where I heard it last. So yeah, that also is a great guiding question for thinking about your manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Kim.
Yeah, thank you. I've enjoyed this session as well. And I'm thinking about how to move forward and write something for myself. And I think about like early 20th century artists and architects manifestos, and they have a kind of a bold, heroic quality, but they also seem sort of simple, like, I don't know, green grass is important, and whatever those things are, like a series of simple declarative statements. I'm thinking of the futurists and others. And my question is, I wonder if you said you have looked at those at some level in the past. I wonder if you have favorite manifestos in any field that you suggest we look at.
I can't think of anything offhand, but but you know, the Dadaists have one, the Futurists have them, the Constructivists have them. Craft movement has one, for example. I guess I am thinking of ones offhand. But well, I'll just say, for example, the craft one is really interesting because here something that, you know, and we artists are guilty of this often, of sort of like, oh, it's just craft, but they actually created a whole manifesto about how craft can really change the world, and not just in the home, like dynamically in society. And when you look at, they make this whole argument in their manifesto about why that's important, where that, you know, you create this intention in your home, and it does change, it can change the world depending on your, it's a lot of it is your intention. So that was a good, I'm glad you asked me that because I drew a blank there for a moment.
I'd
Yes.
also just point out, like, to be a little bit wary maybe of like the macho qualities of some manifestos, like really assertive masculine historic qualities, you know, and what are ways we can, we're not all women here, but a lot, like there is a, you know, there are different qualities now that I think we value, like the mycelial network and the, you know, the humility and the sharing, and like, how do we bring those aspects into what a manifesto now would look like versus what it might have looked like in the past?
Thank you. I love that, Christina. Great point. Yes. And that segues into the idea that just remember that it doesn't even have to be written. You know, this is something that you carry in your heart. You know it deeply. It's in every fiber of your being, and you take it everywhere you go in the way that you show up in the world. And it could be a song or a dance or a film or a drawing or a animation or whatever you want, but however you express yourself, and that it's always in progress, because we keep learning new things that inform who we are and what we stand for. So is there any other
one more
burning
question, Jennifer, and
Yeah.
then we'll have to probably
Wrap it up. Yeah, this has been so great. Thank you all for participating and, you know, jumping in and asking. And this is exactly what I wanted. So thank you. Because this, you know, I'm growing and thinking and changing as and taking risks and all that every time I lead this. So thank you. Hey, Jennifer, was it Jennifer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add something. I just realized in this, it's great because I live in an artist community and we could use a manifesto. So this is sort of addressing where a manifesto would be important. And I recognize that, and I like to move towards that because, you know, we could use one to keep our collective together, and we would function a lot better if we could agree on something that's really important to us. We have just the bare basic mission statement, and I can see where a manifesto can be very useful. So thank you for that. I see where manifestos could be very helpful. Thanks, Beth.
Oh, you're welcome. And you do have a challenge in your community to do that. But I have faith, if anyone can do it, you can. Okay, one other thing, I just wanted to say that I've actually done this manifesto project as a 6-week class with graduate students from all over the world in Helsinki, where I got to work with them 8 hours a day. And I have a long curriculum in this book that was published by the Eco Arts Action Group, and it's called Eco Art in Action: Activities, Case Studies, and Provocations for Classroom Communities. And I posted it in the chat. It's on published by New Village Press. And then I also posted my Law of Seeds project if you want to look at that more in depth, and my website.
I don't see any of that in the chat, actually.
Oh, sorry, I went to direct message to Terry. That would have been, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Can you show us the book? Do you have it there with you?
I went to look for it and I realized no,
Yeah, find it. Okay.
Have it right here. But
well, it's a great book. I will recommend it to people, and I will also say that the Deep Transformation Network, we have these artists and creatives sessions every other Tuesday at this time, and they vary on, they cover lots of different topics, presentations, conversations. And so you're always welcome back. I send out a note a day or two in advance as a reminder, but we hope to see you here in the future.
Can we just do one quick, we have 2 minutes left.
Of course.
And it's like, just go around popcorn, just everyone turn on your mics right now and just, one thing that you're taking home with you, one light of inspiration, just so that we can send everybody
More
off to bed.
community.
It's always a good idea.
Joy and
Take the
possibility.
walk. Excitement.
Yeah. I think inspiration.
Inspiration.
Connections.
Wanting more.
Possibilities.
Fantastic.
I've been thinking about mycelium and web and knitting and mushroom.
I love the draw. Let's draw our manifestos as webs. What a great idea.
Yes.
Good idea.
A map.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Christina Conklin and also Michelle Guillot, who's not here today, but for keeping this group going and the commitment to your arts and activism work that you do. And it's just been an honor to get to know you and work with you. And also thanks to the Deep Transformation Artists and Creatives group for inviting me. And I just thank you all so much for being willing to explore this with me, and encourage you to keep going, stay in touch.
You're radiant.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank
See you, everyone. In a couple weeks.
Thanks, Beth.
Our next featured speaker is actually Christopher, who's on the call with us. And so come back in 2 weeks and we'll have another great conversation.
Thank you, Christina.
Okay, take care. Bye.